Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Um, we've been talking for some time about the chaos that we anticipate as a result of the upcoming election. I was reading something today, and there's been different opinions on that. I know that. We've seen a lot of chaos in the last few months, and many of us have expected that to continue up to the election, and we've been proven right on that. Some of us being tamped down a little bit because it's some on a certain side have seen that it's having a negative effect on their on their argument. But I fully expect for this to be ramping up again. And I was reading something today that gives credence to that. I was reading, I forget how I came across this, the Daily Beast. Probably most of you all don't read that. No reason that you should. It's it's a left wing, shall we say? Well, it's a media outlet. I don't know if we want to say it's news. It's mostly opinion, like so many of them. But I do read these things because I like to know what my opponent's thinking. I like to know if you don't keep track of what your opponent's thinking, you're only fighting half the fight. You don't know what to anticipate. That's why coaches watch game films. That's why we study different battles that have happened in history. That's why we study our enemy, and or our opponent or whatever, however you want to put it. Something came out here that was very interesting that I thought I'd read and then make a couple of comments on and invite you all to put your comments in here as well. So it's like I say, it's from the Daily Beast. It just came out today, I believe. Let's see. No. It didn't come out today. I just stumbled across it today. It was out about a month ago. So anyway, it says that the headline is: the Progressive Coalition Fight Back Table has been meeting to game out what happens if Joe Biden doesn't win by a landslide, and it's not pretty. Okay, here's the article. Last week, a coalition of leading progressive groups gathered on Zoom to begin organizing for what they envision as the post-election day political apocalypse scenario. Put together by the Fight Back Table, that's a name of a group, I guess, an initiative launched after the 2016 election to get a constellation of lefty organizations to work more closely together. The meeting dealt with the operational demands expected if the November election wins without a clear outcome, or with a Joe Biden win that Donald Trump refuses to recognize. Now, of course, that's a point of contention. They've been harping on this for a long time. Excuse me. I'm going to try to keep from clearing my throat as much as possible. They've been harping on this for a long time, that talking about that Trump won't relinquish the White House if he loses. He won't leave, and it's a constitutional crisis. And this is just to ramp up, the emotions on that side. However, there have been, some indications from him, and ones with which I have to disagree, that if it looks like there is a total question about the election, and it doesn't look like it was a fair election, you have to wonder, well, what should you do? And as with many cases, people are going to have different opinions on that. Sources familiar with the discussions describe them as serious, with a modestly panicked overtone. A smaller FBT, that's the Fight Back Table session last fall, had talked about post-election planning, but those discussions were tabled because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This was the first time they were bringing the matter to the 50-plus organizations that make up the coalition. To formalize the effort, they gave it a name: the Democracy Defense Nerve Center. Now, the good part's coming up. Over the course of 2 hours, participants broached the question of what the progressive political ecosystem can functionally do in a series of election scenarios. They began charting out what it would be like, what it would take to stand up to a multi-state communications arm to fight disinformation, or information they disagree with, a training program for nonviolent civil disobedience. We've seen what their nonviolence is. And the underpinnings of what one official described as mass public unrest. And they poured over a report from the Transition Integrity Project. I don't know what that is. They say it's a bipartisan group formed in 2019 that analyzed various election season scenarios and made clear the type of I won't say that word on here, corruption and chaos that potentially was ahead. The potential for violent conflict is high, the report noted. Some of the hurdles were straightforward. How you occupy places, hold space, and shut things down. Not just on election day, but for weeks, explained one source familiar with the Democracy Defense Nerve Center operations. Others are more complicated, like what quick transportation options can be in place should poll locations mysteriously close. Others have been simply impossible to plan out. I don't know what the strategy is when armed right-wing militia dudes show up in polling places, the same source said. Okay, I'm going to stop right there because we see their paranoia and we see their disinformation and we see their plans, and their plans are the important thing. Excuse me while I put this laptop down. And the plans are the important thing. All of this that we've seen, all of the peaceful protests and the riots, we know that they weren't organic. We know that they were. Excuse me one more minute. We know that while there might have been well-intentioned organic seeds that started some of these, they were hijacked by political groups, by Marxist groups, and that from that, just as happened throughout history, from that exploded the violence that we've seen and the destruction that we've seen, and the purpose for this, of course, is multifold. It's to gin up the support on their side. It's to inflame the emotions of those that they think will come on board with them. It's to try to intimidate the other side, try to intimidate the middle ground of America, just like, storming into restaurants and whatever, and demanding that people say certain things and proclaim certain beliefs and things like that. It's typical thuggery. It's typical thug tactics that go back, probably forever, but we can see it back through the Marxist demonstrations back in the 1917s and late teens in Europe and Asia and even some here. And people don't realize that the Communist Party was growing here in the United States a couple of times before, just like it is now. The main thing to keep in mind here and to understand is that they are organized, and that they are organizing resistance the day of and after the election. Whatever happens that they don't like is not going to be accepted. They talk about, the peaceful transition of power. They always accuse the Republicans of they have plans not to vacate the White House and things like that. Well, a lot of times when people make claims like that, they're revealing their own game plan themselves. But they're stirring this up and they're setting this up to get people thinking and then starting to accept the possible premise that the president won't vacate the White House if he's defeated. Now, what that does, of course, is it's a straw man. It's a false argument that you set up in order to be able to knock it down and make yourself look smart and strong, and the other side, the bad guy. Well, since the fact that they are organizing like this, and it is well organized, it's well financed, It needs to be a call to us, to everyone, really, not just people who happen to agree with most of us here politically, but to everyone, people in the middle, and people even on their own side are going to be hurt by this, because when they're talking about shutting things down, they're talking about shutting down again, just like they have other times, public services. They're talking about shutting down neighborhoods. They're talking about shutting down commerce. They're talking about shutting down stores and gas stations and police stations and mass transit and things like this. And the result, of course, is it could be chaos. The scenario that many of us are expecting, and none of us have a crystal ball. We have our thoughts. Everybody kind of tends to think that whoever they support is going to win the election, simply because everybody that they know and talk to feels the same way. I remember that, I don't know who it was Bush, I think, or sometime after Bush won one of his elections, somebody in some newsroom, probably a New York Times person, was quoted as saying, "How did he win? I don't know anybody who voted for him." Well, we all cocoon ourselves for the most part within groups of people who we agree with, and that's natural. So each side has this belief that we're going to win. Who knows? The scenario that many of the people I talk with, and the scenario that I tend to lean toward, is that Trump will probably win the votes on election night, and then there are going to be shenanigans, just like Hillary Clinton has said, no matter what, do not give up, and so we're going to find over the next few weeks, or maybe a couple of months, all sorts of ballots showing up here, there, everywhere, that are going to put Biden over the top, and then he will be declared the winner. In either of these situations, if Trump wins if Biden wins the first night, there aren't going to be any problems. We pretty much know that. If Trump wins, there's going to be major problems. And the problems that we've seen in the past here, the last few months, are going to be dwarfed, I think, by the problems we'll see starting the night of November 3rd and certainly on November 4th. And those will continue. Those will continue through the process of court fights and everything that can be done to find new ballots to show that Biden won. Okay, so we're going to go through at least, if Trump comes out the winner that night, we're going to go through at least a couple of months of some real problems. Those are the times that we need to, and we can take it down the field farther than that. I don't think I will right now, because the main point here is they are planning for chaos, and if you're not planning for chaos, you're going to be behind the game. So what do we do when we plan for chaos? Well, pretty much what we do all the time anyway, but maybe with some added energy. We prepare. Most people that watch this probably are prepared. I know, and I enjoy listening or reading all the comments for those of you who aren't yet as prepared as you'd like to be. I understand that. It's a process. It takes time. It takes money. It takes thought. It takes understanding. And the more you go along that path, the more all of those come together. And at first, most people kind of throw a lot of money at it and waste a lot of money because they don't really have, everything's not together up here. And they don't see the proper layering and the proper integration of different aspects of preparedness. And then as they get more, experienced, then your preparation dollar and time, it brings greater rewards per amount of time and money spent. So I understand all of you who don't say, well, I'm not quite where I want to be. That's all right. Just now's the time to really use this situation as a real training scenario, thinking that you've got about a month to where it might be dangerous to leave your house. To be real honest, it might be dangerous. And if you have to go into areas that are usually hit by these things, it can be even more dangerous. My mother, I remember, and I've mentioned before, I was 14 during the riots here in Kansas City, and that was 1968, and she worked down at a place that was kind of on the outskirts of the city, central city. And it was a place that was fine during the daytime, but you wouldn't want to walk around at night, you know. However, when the riots hit, she told them, well, they heard it on the radio. You know, things were starting to burn and things were starting to move out from where it had started. And she says, I'm out of here. I'm going home. And she said, I'll be back when all this is over. And she didn't go back to work for a couple of weeks. Now she was fortunate, you know. She worked in a place that valued her, and they went along with that. A lot of people aren't going to feel like they can do that, and so a lot of people will think that and of course a lot of people won't even think that there's a problem. They'll poo-poo it and, oh, nothing's going to happen. But when these things get started, they can get started and they can blow up fast. So if you do work in a place that's near a center where these things start, you have some thinking that you need to do. If you work from home, all the better. If you're already working from home, you're in good shape, not having to go into the city at all. If you have to go into the city, you need to. If you haven't put together some kind of bag in order to let yourself get home, then you need to now. And I'll probably, I guess I know that I need to make one on the JIC bag. What I call a JIC bag is what we call it, a just in case bag. It pretty much covers everything. Other people call, get home bag, bug out bags, things like this. And there's slight differences in those. And I will, but probably here in the next couple of days, I'm just going to put one out as to what you might want to have in what I call a city bag. And that is, if you need to go into the city, you need to have certain things with you in order to, facilitate your escape, as it were. You're bugging out of the city and back home, and realize that if something starts in a city, it can be difficult to get out. Now, for any number of reasons. If you work in a downtown area and if things start to burn and you hear gunshots, you probably don't want to leave that building that you're in. Okay, and for how long you're going to be in there, well, who knows? It could be to the next day. It could be longer than that. Do you want to live on the crackers in the snack machine down the hall? So you should probably have, and I would suggest you have with you what can sustain you for a few days. It doesn't have to be a full on get home bag or anything like that. Throw some extra food in your car. Throw some extra food in the backpack that you take to work, your purse. Just simply be able to sustain yourself for a while. There's nothing wrong with having a case of bottled water up in your office, just in case. These things, sometimes blow over quickly. Sometimes they sustain themselves for a while, but you don't want to have to leave to get out. And I realize I'm going to make a more detailed one on this about getting out of the city, because this could go on for quite a while, and I've already gone on a little bit. So think about that. Think about and realize that if you need to get home, it could take a lot longer than you anticipate. If people are raising Cain and then they block the highway that you're trying to get home on, well, guess what? Everybody else is trying to get home too, and they're blocking the highway. Have you been in a traffic jam that's just not moving because of construction or a wreck or something like that? Well, this is a situation that's not going to move at all. You're not going to inch along. You're going to stay right where you are until your car runs out of gas, and you're going to stay there, not being able to get to the next off ramp or go forward or backward or anything. So you have a decision to make whether or not to stay in your car and just stay there as a sitting duck for any that happen to say, let's go down this line of cars here and have a little fun, or whether you need to get out of that car and leave it there and get to some place that's a little safer. So those are things that really now, and I'm going to make another one. I'll get into more detail, but those are the things you ought to start thinking about right now. Now, even if you don't work in a place like that, and you don't have to go into a city to work, realize, like I talked on a previous one, these things can flash anywhere. They can flash at an intersection, a a a road rage situation can spark a much larger problem in an environment like this. It could be, something at your grocery store, your drugstore, down the whatever. It could make it simply to where you don't feel like it's worth going out. You need to stay in, and if these things blow up, it can get to that point. So you need to be prepared to pretty much stay in. Now, most of us are pretty experienced in preparedness, so most of us wouldn't have to leave our house for a year or two, right? But there are a lot of you out there that aren't quite to that point. So I would suggest that you take a look at what are the things that you need to get in your house um, in order to let you stay in your house for 2 months. I would suggest that to be a good goal. Call it 2 months. And if you don't have that, get up to that point, and then don't stop there. Don't stop there. Keep building on that. Build up to a year. And I've told people I wouldn't feel comfortable unless I, had 3 years ability and not to leave the house. And to some people, I know that can seem extreme. That can seem out of reach. If you think it's extreme, I can't dissuade you from that. But if you think it's out of reach, it's not just one step at a time. It's getting a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And the more little bits you put together, pretty soon you've got a lot. So keep pushing in that area. And just realize we've got it from their own mouth here. They're preparing for chaos. They're talking about how to shut places down and keep them down. Okay. And if you're not preparing to be able to respond to or avoid that chaos, you could get stuck right in the middle of it, and then there's not any place. The worst place to be in the world is where something bad is happening to you, and you look back and go, oh man, I wished I'd done such and such, right? So a little bit of preparation now can save you a lot of heartache later, and I think that's exactly what you should be doing. We don't have a lot to tighten up here, except that we are talking about it. We are being very aware of it, and we are keeping close track of the news. I know that a lot of times people say, "Oh, I don't watch the news. It just drives you nuts. You can't believe in anything that they say." Well, I don't keep real close track of the news a lot myself on a daily basis, because it pretty much is the same old regurgitation of yesterday. Same things happening to different people on a local level, and nationally, it's rehashing. It's like a soap opera. You can miss 6 months. I never watched soap operas, but I used to kid people that I knew who did. So you can miss 6 months and come right back and not have missed anything, and that's pretty much the truth with a lot of this. However, we're in a spot now where things are developing quickly, and they can start developing a lot more quickly, and you want to be on top of it. So watching the news now, just look at it as a strategic necessity. Okay, you need to know what's going on. If you are not watching those things that can prove to be a threat to you, then you're not going to be ready when it comes, and you need to be ready when it comes. So I think that's it. Remember, that's why our tagline is say that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. The preparation has to be today, because tomorrow is not the time to prepare for something that happens tomorrow. So I think I'll leave it there. Let's keep a close eye on things. I'm going to be back here in a day or two with I got a busy weekend coming up with hockey and soccer and all sorts of things going around the home place here. But I'm going to get back and talk a little bit more about getting out of the city, what to think about, how to plan for it, and probably put together a couple on bags that people have been asking for. So I'm going to get on about my day. You all have a great day. I hope it's as nice where you are as it is where I am. and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.